All right, welcome everyone to my talk on radical transparency. My name is Victor Lyuboslavsky. I've been in tech for about 25 years across many industries doing both hardware and software. Currently, I'm a software engineer at Fleet Device Management, where we do open source device management for corporate IT teams, as well as endpoint telemetry for security teams. So this is a great question, and I had it too. But it turns out when everything is internally and externally transparent at your company, you can learn enough about your company to give a conference talk. I'm an individual contributor, but without transparency, I'm able to have access to almost all the information that our executives have, including customer details, investors, prospects, analysis of competition, et cetera, et cetera. So let's start with a brief history of Fleet Device Management. It was founded in 2020 by Mike McNeil and Zach Wasserman. It grew out of Fleet, the open source project, as an effort to make a business around the open source project. The original use case was for security, for gathering telemetry from endpoints like laptops. So things like software installed, peripherals plugged in, user accounts present, processes running, and a whole bunch of other security stuff. Our product is on-prem, so customers can run it themselves, and we also offer it as SaaS, so we will run it for our customer. The initial funding was provided by Sid Sijbrandij, the co-founder and former CEO of GitLab. His fund, Open Core Ventures, supports the creation of open core companies such as ourselves. And in 2023, we expanded from our original security use case into device management, which is a bigger market. We are cross-platform, and I believe Linux is our second biggest use case for our customers behind macOS. So we are built from pieces. So one of our pieces is OS Query. OS Query is the agent that runs on your laptop, and then our product communicates with that agent and gets telemetry via that agent. So OS Query Foundation operates under the Linux Foundation umbrella. It is a transparent project. It has office hours that are recorded and posted on YouTube. It has a Slack workspace that is open to everyone, and its code and its issues are in GitHub. Another source of inspiration for us was GitLab. So Sid pioneered the buyer-based open core approach, segmenting features into user roles. So we have the open source features for the individual contributors, and then we have the proprietary tiers for enterprise users. So this model ensures that core functionalities remain open, fostering both community engagement and business sustainability. So GitLab also has radical transparency. It has a publicly accessible company handbook detailing operations and culture. It has open issue trackers, open roadmaps, and a whole bunch of other open things. So we are trying to follow in that tradition. Another important piece to mention about our company is that we are all remote, just like GitLab. So Sid from GitLab championed this model, demonstrating the viability and influencing remote work adoption across the industry, long before COVID made it more popular. So let's start with kind of just some general business benefits of transparency. So external trust and credibility, right? By being transparent, we show our customers, partners, and recruits that we have nothing to hide, and we position ourselves as an industry leader that's both progressive and trustworthy. Transparency tends to attract top talent. People, including software developers, are drawn to companies that not only share their code, but also their values, their processes, and their culture publicly. So at a previous company, if I wanted to submit a talk to a conference, it had to go through legal review. But now at a more transparent company, I use my own judgment for what to submit to conferences or what to publish on my own. Transparency invites feedback and collaboration. Community, hobbyists, partners, and customers can spot issues and contribute improvements. It's easier for them to agree and feel comfortable with the processes and timelines of the company if they have visibility into the things that concern them. And lastly, transparency differentiates your brand. So we ourselves are in a crowded market of device management, but we can say, for example, that we can differentiate ourselves by saying that we are the first open source Windows MDM solution. Now, before we get into the details of external transparency for Fleet, we have to talk about internal transparency because, as we found, the two are related. So because we're externally transparent, public by default, we ask our employees to share their work, right? Share their code, their documentation, and even their concerns in public for the world to see. And as you might have noticed from GitHub issue comments and other places, people can be quite passionate regarding technical ideas. So that level of vulnerability takes trust, and trust has to be mutual. If we expect this external openness from our employees, it's only fair that the leadership and the company are just as open in return internally. So openness isn't a one-way street, right? We're not just telling employees to be open. It's a culture built on everyone at every level, sharing information honestly and transparently. So that means so how our leadership handles internal transparency? By making company decisions, strategies, and even mistakes visible to all employees, we as a company show our people that transparency isn't just expected, it's valued. And when employees see leadership practicing radical transparency, they feel safer sharing their own ideas and challenges. So to summarize, if we want employees to be comfortable with external transparency, it helps if managers and leaders practice radical internal transparency. So let me give you an example. So most of our regularly scheduled meetings are recorded, including the executive leadership team meeting with the CEO. So that means any employee can go and watch the weekly executive meeting. Our meeting with customers are also recorded, and this helps us internally, among other things, to hear feedback and suggestions directly from the customer. So if I'm an engineer working on an issue, I can reference back to a call where the customer voiced their concern to make sure that things are not lost in translation. So some of our customers don't have recorded meetings, and this can be an issue because we have to then come back to the customer and say, and have another meeting with them where they explain the issue again with a different audience present, maybe product designers and engineers. So how do I consume these recorded meetings? So I personally, when I go to the gym, I go on the elliptical machine and I pull up my phone and I watch some recorded meetings. Usually I follow like one or two customers. There's regularly scheduled meetings I watch, and maybe I'll watch like one-off meeting here and there. So the idea for me is to get a good sense of what's going on in the company. And the fact that I'm exercising and also doing work, right? It's a concept called habit bundling. Sometimes if there's a meeting I want to watch, and then I need to make myself like exercise more. What we've seen happen is because of this internal transparency, employees sometimes know more than their manager knows because they're like watching different meetings. So that's a positive because that means the manager can go beyond simply giving information to the employees and go on to more meaningful conversations such as discussing customer issues or issues that concern the whole company as a whole. And from a recruitment perspective, telling a candidate that anyone in the company can go and watch the executive meeting sends a really strong message that's hard to counter. All right, now all this talk about transparency may make you wonder, what about confidentiality? Well, Fleet maintains a strong commitment to confidentiality through clear data classification levels and handling requirements. While operating with a public by default philosophy, we recognize that certain information such as customer data, business plans, security-related information must be protected through strict confidentiality measures, including NDAs and controlled access protocols. Here's a few other examples that our employees see internally, examples for internal transparency. So financials include burn rate, details of customer deals, financial projections. Recently, we've been raising our Series B round, so employees were able to see a list of investors that are participating and list of potential investors. We can see kind of details of our competition, including how we are trying to position ourselves against our top competitors. Marketing includes events that we're participating in, as well as announcements, and specific announcements, and when they're scheduled to go out. We are using Slack workspace. We are using a free Slack, which means we only keep 90 days of conversations. I think part of the reason for that is to make sure that any serious conversations get captured internally or publicly. And in Slack itself, we encourage employees to post in shared channels as opposed to using direct messages. And leaders and older employees often model this behavior by moving a conversation from a shared channel to from a DM into a shared channel. So for example, if a new engineer DMs me saying a question about a specific issue, I would move that conversation into a shared channel and answer it there. All right, so what are some lessons and issues with internal transparency? So this idea of too much information and things being overwhelming is going to come up several times through this presentation. So we have more than 40 hours of recorded meeting content. We have shared Slack. Everything is shared, so there's a lot of stuff to look at. Our internal docs are continuously being updated. So people's inability to manage all of this can lead to burnout, and we've actually seen it where some employees kind of just refuse to turn off their Slack notifications. So managers need to be aware of this, not only of burnout, but also to make sure their employees have focus time to work on things that provide value to the company. So one example of a good behavior is to encourage batching activities such as code reviews. Instead of jumping on every code review you see in Slack, you would batch it. You would only do your code reviews, say, in the morning or in the afternoon, basically once a day. All this transparency, both internal and external, may make people feel like they cannot act like themselves. There's a term called social desirability bias, where people tend to give answers and act in ways that they think are more acceptable or socially acceptable or desirable. This is a concern, but on the other hand, it has some benefits. So one of our values is empathy, and what we found is when conversations in meetings or in Slack are shared, there's less sarcasm and less negativity. So I myself find that I'm less negative at the company, and hopefully that translates to the rest of my life. So this next issue deserves its own slide. So when managers or leaders make a decision or a proposal, it can be quite time-consuming to deal with objections and requests for additional details and requests for clarifications. So one example, recently our leadership came up with company goals for the quarter, and the quarter progressed, but then employees started asking questions like, yeah, you told us these are the goals, but why aren't we working on those goals? So either priorities changed, or actually, as we found out, that the goals were actually poorly framed. So the lesson here is when things are shared, you need to consider potential issues and concerns. But doing all this consideration can be quite challenging, right, for managers and leaders. Well, this type of pushback actually, in my opinion, makes you a better leader and a better person, because ultimately, after all this pushback, the decisions will generally be better. All right, we've talked about internal transparency, so now let's talk about things, external transparency, things that are completely open to the public. And the main thing is our handbook. Fleet follows a handbook-first strategy where any changes to how the business run are documented in the handbook before becoming live or official. So instead of running on gut instinct, hallway conversations, or just ask your manager, we use this process-based approach. And the handbook is our playbook. So some examples of processes are hiring a new employee, releasing a new version of our product, renewing certificates. So this way, it's not a guessing game. It's not a group huddle for every answer. It's open the handbook, follow the process step by step, and get it done. This is one of the ways we turn chaos into clarity and keep everyone moving forward, fast and confidently. So some advantages of the open handbook. It fosters, because anyone can contribute, it fosters ownership of the processes. And people take greater ownership of their own work. It also encourages employees to feel more responsible for keeping themselves informed. They're able to find the answers on their own without waiting for managers and colleagues. And this also encourages proactive behavior in general, not just in regards to the handbook. Because the full handbook is open, employees are more likely to learn new things about how different other departments do things when they know the resources are openly available. By outlining decision frameworks, escalation paths, and core company values, the handbook gives individuals the context they need to make informed decisions. And this accelerates decision making. With published guidelines, everyone's on the same page, so individuals can self-check their understanding against the company standards. For example, if I'm in a meeting and a process is being discussed and next steps are being discussed, and I'm not quite sure because of the process, I can go to the handbook, and the handbook not only has the process, but why things are done a certain way. And if I find a discrepancy, I can go back to the meeting and basically say, hey, what's going on here? So the handbook is an important part of our all-remote work approach. So I have to mention some benefits regarding remote work and its connection to the handbook. So people can work when it suits them, trusting that they have all the resources they need. There's no need for real-time guidance. The handbook removes ambiguity by serving as the clear official reference. New team members can ramp up quickly, no matter where they are, following the documented best practices and processes, with minimal hand-holding. Now, as I mentioned, we not only explain the processes, but why we do certain things and how we work. So this way, the culture isn't lost as the team grows. All right, what are the business benefits of this public handbook? As I mentioned, it accelerates onboarding for hires and contractors, but also kind of onboarding for partners and customers as well, because they can get started asynchronously. There's no NDA required. So this enables better customer and partner alignment. External stakeholders can adjust their workflows to ours, reducing friction and misunderstanding. People can look up processes themselves, which is a part of a general trend of self-service for customer support. And because it's public, there's sort of a public pressure on us to make sure that our processes are best in class. All right, what are the lessons and issues of a publicly accessible handbook? Continuing theme here is information overload. The handbook is quite large, maybe not as large as GitLab's, but it is growing. So sometimes if you look at it, you don't know what's important and where to start. So for new employees, we have an onboarding checklist that points to specific parts of the handbook. We also try to give an employee an onboarding buddy who can help him guide through the handbook. We also try to provide summaries and quick start sections. Now, what if there's some process that you didn't know was documented? Well, we try to encourage a search-first culture. We have a monorepo, which kind of helps with that. In our monorepo, not only do we have the handbook, we have articles and guides, we have the code, so everything's in one repo. So modern AI tools are actually great with helping with that. For example, like Cursor can search your whole code base, so you can ask it questions about the handbook, not just about code, but about the handbook, about the company processes. So that helps people find relevant sections faster. Another issue is sometimes the things that we do don't match contributor expectations. For example, someone comes in from another project, another open source project where they're used to doing things a certain way. They create a PR for a major feature for Fleet. Now our handbook says that any major feature has to go through our drafting design process to make sure it fits well within the whole product. Now this may be too slow for the contributor. So they may not like the process. Well, what we try to do is regularly review and update processes based on this type of real feedback. It's also easy for contributors to try to change the process by either by opening a PR, because the handbook is public, they can open a PR and suggest a change or a correction to the process. And opening a PR against the handbook kind of elevates the visibility internally. Another issue is keeping things up to date. The handbook can actually lag behind actual practices. So one example is, recently we changed the budget on our credit cards, but this wasn't reflected in the handbook. Well, what we try to do is we try to reward and recognize those who contribute to this handbook maintenance. In our Slack, we have a thanks channel. And so we try to thank people in that channel, well, for a lot of things, but one of the things is for keeping our handbook up to date. So that helps. All right, so we've talked about the handbook. Let's move on to some technical documentation. So all our code is in GitHub. So that includes the code, includes the issues, our bugs and stories. As I mentioned before, our articles and guides are also in the code base, the articles and guides that you can find on our website. And so we also have our wireframes available. So when an issue is open, anyone can go to our Figma and look at the wireframes even as the issue is being worked on. A few other things that are open is architectural decision records, and then contributor documentation such as diagrams, experimental APIs, contributor-only features. So we find that customers really like this transparency into kind of our design process and our internal details. This helps build trust and connection with our users and our customers. And like I mentioned before, it's a marketing talking point, a differentiator. So one specific thing that customers really like is they like to be able to provide immediate feedback on the issues that they're interested on. Like an example, our Figma designs are public, so if we are in the process of working on an issue, customers can go in and check up on it. And they can follow issues on GitHub, so they can go in and make comments if they think things are not going the direction they like. All right, so what are some lessons and issues from making all this technical documentation public? Well, customer privacy is not only nice to have, it's a contractual obligation. And a lot of our features we create for specific customers. So what we do is we use code names. So a few examples of code names are here. So we use these code names on our GitHub issues so that we know internally what customers those issues are for. The next issue is the following. So we have Slack, like I mentioned. So sometimes people have conversations about issues in our Slack and not in the GitHub issues. And because our Slack expires after 90 days, sometimes the context of those conversations get lost. So that is a current issue we're exploring how to fix. So we are considering using GitHub discussions for issue-related conversations. All right, customer comments. So in the previous slide, I said that customers love the fact that they can go in and comment on their issues. In fact, anyone can go in and comment on our GitHub issues. But this can make things tricky for us. We're trying to solve kind of the general case to make the product better for all customers, while our customers may only be interested in their specific use case. So one thing we often do is we combine several related issues into one issue. But at the same time, we don't want to close the customer's issues because we don't want to seem like we're ignoring or disregarding that customer. So currently we lean toward opening new issues as opposed to kind of closing or modifying or cleaning up old issues. So this does make it seem like our project has a lot of issues that are not being worked on, unfortunately. All right, so our Scrum boards are also public. So this gives additional visibility to customers to know where their issue is at, if their issue will make it to the next release. Right, they can see where if it's in progress, if it's in review, maybe it's waiting for something, or maybe we took it off this board completely and went back to the design board because there wasn't enough detail for the software developers. All right, back to this issue. So there's a kind of a fire hose of information that our customers have access to. Our customer success team is responsible for distilling all that information for our customers. What is relevant for the customer and where they can go to get more information, right? Just because information is publicly available somewhere doesn't mean it can be found by everyone. So our customer success team is responsible for making sure customers know where to go if they want more information about their issues. And some customers are okay diving into the code, making code changes themselves, making suggestions for pull requests, while others want kind of a higher level summary. All right, in this last section, let's talk about videos. So like I mentioned earlier, most of our regular meetings are recorded. But we also have meetings that have this triangle icon. So we have meetings internally that have this triangle icon. That means those meetings are considered public by default. So some examples of those meetings are design reviews that happen daily and sprint demos. Now, what about confidential information? Well, if things like customer names, IP addresses, secrets get revealed, either with screen sharing or verbally, any team member on the call can say pineapple, pineapple, pineapple. So why 3 times? Well, to make sure that at least one of those gets caught by the transcription service, so that afterwards we can search the transcript for pineapple and go and cut or blur those sections of the video out. All right, what are the business benefits of making our meetings and some other videos public? Well, this helps us extend the personal connections with customers and the community. Right, there's been a lot of concern recently with things like AI deepfakes and American companies hiring workers from North Korea. So this ability to regularly to be able to see the people who are working on their issues or answering their support questions or replying to their GitHub comments, it really helps with customer trust. And it helps customers to have further insight and visibility into our processes. It reduces skepticism compared to text alone. Videos also improve knowledge retention because they capture the nuance and that the written documents such as changelog notes, right, may miss, which helps to reduce miscommunication in general. And then another benefit of having videos available in public is they can be reused for other things. For example, clips from meetings can be reused for marketing on social channels. They can be reused for documentation. They can be reused for training materials. And recordings from customer calls, the clips from those, with customers' permission, can be reused as customer testimonials. So I use video as well myself. So when I work on an issue, on a major feature, I would actually make a video kind of demoing that feature and explaining it in detail. So that video goes up whenever I have a PR out. So this enables any customer that's interested to give early feedback on that feature. That video can also be used in our sprint demos. It can be used by our QA team. And it can be used later by customer success, finding issues with that feature. All right, what are some lessons and issues with making videos available in the public? So it's a lot of work right now to put up a video on YouTube for us. We have to look at the transcript, look for all the pineapples, scrub out that section of the video, then post it up on YouTube, make a nice description. Ideally, we would make a thumbnail as well. So that's quite a bit of work, and we don't have an automated flow for it right now. It would be really nice if this was automated. And that's part of the reason why we're so behind in actually posting our videos. Another issue is that some people, employees I'm talking about, want to control where and how their likeness appears. Maybe they want to curate how they're seen online, or maybe there is camera shyness or personal discomfort with being publicly recorded. So in that case, they need to have someone else present for them, or maybe they need to turn off their camera. So we don't have a solution for this problem. Our best advice is to just make sure our candidates coming in to the company are aware that some of our videos, some of our internal meetings are public by default. Wanted to point out that I created a tool, a Chrome extension called OpenBlur that helps hide sensitive information. So our product is a device management product, so it includes things like IP addresses, emails. So when we're demoing our product, it's really nice to hide that sensitive information, and this tool kind of blurs it. So now we have also some challenges with our meeting recording tool. So currently, people need to have a license to record meetings, which means the person with the license has to run the meeting. However, we are a transparent company, internally transparent, so we actually want meetings to be recorded by default and not based on someone else running the meeting. So the problem with the current model is if person who is running the meeting is on vacation, we might lose like a design review or a customer call recording, right? That could affect the business because now that information is lost. So we are definitely actively looking for a meeting recording product that is more aligned with our transparent approach. Because this is the issue we get. Sometimes we have a meeting that we intended to record, but someone forgot to record it, and now we lost that information. All right, just wanted to point out a few things that are not public. Employee information, salary, PII, performance reviews, feedback. Much of that information is not only confidential, but is classified. Besides our public repo, we do have a confidential repo that holds things like infrastructure as code for our customer environments. We track our security issues there. And then employee requests as well, like someone's requesting equipment and things like that. Unfortunately, some of our vendors require that some of our code is not public. For example, we recently integrated with Microsoft Entra ID for conditional access support, and we were the first open source company to do that, but they have asked us to make that integration code not public. All right, customers want to trust the products they use, and they love it when they can see behind the curtain. Employees want to know what's going on, to have a real voice, and to know that their work matters. So radical transparency, internal and external, brings all of that together. It's not always easy, but it makes us better. Better to work with and better to work for. So that concludes my presentation. I have a few links here about Fleet, our repo, open positions, and then a few links about myself. So at this point, I can open it up for questions. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, so it sounded like there actually are quite a few drawbacks around the open video, especially.
Yes.
In terms of storage, in terms of manual post-processing, in terms of potential hiring discrimination against people who have stalkers, for example.
Right.
Where does the decision come from to use video specifically as opposed to sharing notes or sharing transcripts in these meetings?
Sorry, Victor, would you repeat the question for the sake of the recording? Thank you.
The question was where kind of the decision comes from, whether to share a video or share meeting notes. Yes, I agree. That is a good question. I'm not exactly sure. I know that we are following other companies that are doing the same thing, and our customers do enjoy getting this extra transparency into our processes. But you're correct, and I did point out that we don't have quite that issue solved in regards to people not wanting to be on video. All right, that's it then. If you want to talk to me, okay, one more question.
One of the objections we get to radical transparency is competitor analysis.
Yep.
We don't want to reveal too much to competitors. How have you had to overcome those kinds of issues?
Yes, that is a common objection. That competitors can see how we implement a certain feature, and maybe they can do things faster. I can't speak from a business perspective, but from my personal perspective, if I was a competitor and my boss asked me to go and copy a feature from someone else, I would want to have that job. But in general, we found we're all here for open source. In general, we have not found that that's a big issue. We have not found that maybe that's because we're still kind of a small company. Maybe that's part of it. Yes?
Was Fleet founded with these values initially, or have they migrated?
Yes, I would say Fleet was founded with these values initially. Right. A lot of these values came from the OS Query project, right, which is part of the Linux Foundation, as well as influence from GitLab.
So do you have any recommendations for how to convince a company that not have these values?
Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes best recommendation is to switch to a company with those values.
I think that basically answered my question, which is like, I've certainly seen scenarios where like having the executives record their weekly meeting is incredibly cool.
Yeah.
I've definitely been in those meetings where executives were extremely reluctant to talk about like, oh, we're going to make this change to the healthcare plan in 3 months, but we
Yeah.
don't want to tell everyone now. We need to strategize about how the comms to the company is going to go out. And it's hard for me to imagine the people who felt strongly about that being comfortable having those meetings recorded and promulgated weekly. I would imagine them either like then making their own extra private meeting or it's just not compatible. So I think I have the same thought as like, okay, how do I convince people that this is worth doing at some level in the company?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, maybe also, feedback from people who you didn't hire because they chose another company that may be more transparent. Maybe you see that happening. Yes.
Hi, just comment. I work at GitLab, and a lot of times what we do is just pause the recording when we're talking about something that's not free to be publicly disseminated. And all hands, if we're talking about something controversial, or I guess maybe not controversial, but confidential, pause the meeting. A lot of times in the slide deck, there'll be like a no, but pause meeting here to talk about this, or pause recording here to talk about this. So yeah, there's just a pause recording feature on Zoom. Obviously, there's room for people to forget to do that, but that's I think what we're doing right now.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks. Okay, that's it then. Thanks, everyone.